A second day of talks between China and the U.S. in Beijing, searching for common ground amid deep divisions. From trade to technology, a litany of concerns from each side. Warnings about a powerful storm in the Gulf of Mexico. Idalia strengthens to a hurricane as it barrels towards Florida, millions in its projected path. And Malaysians say goodbye to two panda cubs going to China after years of pandemic delays. And they're not the only ones. A similar journey in store for giant pandas right here in Washington.
Live from Washington, this is The World Today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Asiye Namdar in Washington. Reduce friction, confrontation, and work together to promote world economic recovery. That was the message from Chinese Premier Li Qiang while meeting with U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo in Beijing. She met with other officials as well before traveling to Shanghai for the last leg of her trip to China. CGTN's Dai Kai has more.
It's a pretty packed schedule for Gina Raimondo during her 4-day visit to China. Today, she met China's Premier Li Qiang in Beijing. The Chinese Premier mentioned that recently there has been a noticeable increase in dialogue spanning various sectors between China and the United States. This engagement has garnered positive attention and recognition on a global scale. He emphasized that constructive dialogues are essential for comprehending each other's concerns and identifying common ground. He also said that the economic and trade relationship serves as a cornerstone for China-U.S. relations, and when managed effectively, it benefits both nations as well as the international community. Raimondo said that during the first 2 days of her visit, there has already been productive exchanges with Chinese officials. Earlier on Tuesday, she met with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng. Other than that, we've learned that boosting travel and tourism is a big part of Raimondo trip this time. Today, she also met with China's Minister of Culture and Tourism, agreeing to hold the 14th China-U.S. Tourism Leadership Summit in China in the first half of 2024. Experts I spoke to believe that the high frequency, if you will, of the recent visits paid by U.S. high-level officials really shows the urgency of both sides getting together and having that in-person, face-to-face talks to work on some of the existing challenges. And they believe a bunch of concrete outcomes this time have been reached, such as the establishment of new communication channels and new working groups set up to resolve business frictions. So all these actions showing that the bilateral relationship is moving toward a right direction.
And that was Dai Kai reporting. Now, Wednesday will bring another high-profile visitor to China, Britain's top diplomat, British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, heading there after his visit to the Philippines. CGTN's Lee Jinhua reports from London.
James Cleverly will be the highest-ranking British official to visit China in 5 years, since the UK's former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt went there in 2018. Tensions between the two countries have flared in recent years over a range of issues, including Hong Kong and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But economic ties remain robust. China is still the UK's fourth largest trading partner, and experts say both sides now want to further stabilize their trade relationship and find other areas of cooperation, including climate change and artificial intelligence technology.
Apart from the trade talks or the economic involvement, there are lots to be discussed. We have the climate, the COP28 upcoming. So obviously climate will be top on the agenda. The UK is going to hold the first ever summit on the safe use of artificial intelligence, which is AI, in November. And I'm sure these kind of talks in terms of how both the UK and China and the world can engage in a more, kind of build an international consensus on the future of AI will be also on the agenda.
In a speech earlier this year, James Cleverly said a key pillar of British government policy would be to engage directly with China, and that failing to do so would be a betrayal of national interest. Last month, he met China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who said both parties should show their responsibility as major countries and jointly tackle global challenges. However, Cleverly's words stand in sharp contrast to those of the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who in his first major foreign policy speech last year signalled the end of the golden era relations between China and and Britain. Those sentiments were reiterated at the G7 summit in May, when Sunak said China poses the biggest challenge to global security and prosperity. There is much to discuss and much interest in whether any new agreements will be reached, deals which can go some way towards improving relations between these two countries. Li Jianhua, CGTN, London.
China, meanwhile, bracing for Typhoon Seola. The storm could bring gale-force winds and heavy rain to its eastern and southern coast. Typhoon Seola is expected to move into northeastern waters off the South China Sea Thursday morning. Could make landfall near the coasts of southern Fujian and eastern Guangdong by Saturday morning. Here in the U.S., Hurricane Idalia is quickly intensifying over the Gulf of Mexico. Forecasters say it will be a dangerous hurricane before it makes landfall in Florida, where it could become a once-in-a-lifetime disaster. Nitza Soledad Perez joins us from Tampa. What is the situation there? Nitza, are people getting ready for this monster storm?
Well, things are getting difficult here in Florida. Hurricane Idalia's maximum sustained winds have reached 150 kilometers per hour, and more rapid intensification is expected before landfall. The National Hurricane Center is forecasting that Idalia will make landfall as a Category 3 storm in the Big Bend area of Florida, and that would be unprecedented. It's never happened in recorded history that a major hurricane, meaning Category 3 or above, has landed in that part of the state. Now, Idalia has hurricane force winds extending outwards 30 kilometers. Now, the tropical force winds, they extend outwards 260 kilometers. It's a massive system. Potentially 13 million people could be affected by the storm. And the biggest threat is the combination of storm surge and high tide. Again, forecasters are saying that Cedar Key, the Apalachee Bay, could see a storm surge of possible 5 meters high. Now, as for your question, preparations. 21 counties are under evacuation orders. That's 1.6 million people. Schools have closed. The Tampa airport closed earlier today. Now, but while we were driving around the city of Tampa, this is a big metropolitan area, let me tell you, we didn't see that many houses boarded up. Still, there's a lot of traffic. And when we arrived to the Sandbag Distribution Center, yes, there were some people there, some residents. They were preparing, but they still sounded very skeptical. Let's take a listen.
We live in a brick building, so I'm hoping that's gonna keep us safe. But no, nothing over the windows. But they took us necessary precautions, like making sure everything comes inside, no patio furniture, so nothing's gonna be flying around outside to like break a window.
I believe it's gonna bypass, but I believe we're gonna get some wind, we're gonna get some rain. I do believe that most of that would happen. We get a lot of rain and we get high winds. So that's why I tell you about it too. I bring everything in too from my house too, because I leave stuff outside, come back all over the yard.
Authorities are pleading with residents that live in low-lying areas to heed evacuation orders, seek shelter, find friends. They don't have to leave the state, just move to higher ground. No one wants to see a repeat of what happened with Hurricane Ian just last year in Florida's Gulf Coast, where more than 100 people died. And as a matter of fact, we're already getting reports that Fort Myers, it's getting flooded. Asia.
Wow. Nitza Soledad Perez, live for us in Tampa. Now, I spoke to Jonathan Porter. He's the chief meteorologist at AccuWeather.
We're starting to see the storm rapidly gain wind intensity, which means that the storm is becoming stronger, and that's going to amplify those concerns about storm surge and damaging winds, especially in the Big Bend portion of Florida, all the way down the west coast into the Tampa Bay area, where a significant storm surge is going to occur. The storm will then move inland, and we're talking about damaging winds and lots of power outages, trees down from places like Tallahassee northeastward toward Jacksonville. And the problems are going to continue further north and east from there as the storm moves along, with storm surge flooding and heavy rainfall across portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. So tens of millions of people will be impacted by this very dangerous storm.
Jonathan, I don't know if you heard our correspondent in Tampa. She was saying a lot of people are not really boarding up. What is your message to people in the Tampa area along the Florida Gulf Coast who at this point are not really taking the warning seriously.
Well, take any evacuation orders seriously because that indicates there's a significant risk from that storm surge. In the Tampa Bay area, we're most concerned about that surge. Despite the storm going very far quite a bit to the north, making landfall to the north of the Tampa Bay area, water is going to be funneled by the storm's strong winds right into Tampa Bay, an area that's vulnerable for storm surge. So people, especially living right near the coast and in those bays and inlets, that's where the most significant concern is going to be. And of course, wind and rain there, and more dangerous impacts from the storm surge further to the north. So people in the storm's path need to take this very seriously. Stay up to date with the AccuWeather app. We've got some great features in our free app where people can zoom in on interactive maps to see all the storm impacts in their area.
And our thanks to Jonathan Porter. Still ahead, a medical first that might send you squirming, plus concerns about Maui's water supply after those devastating wildfires. Less than a week after he died in a mysterious plane crash, Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was buried in his home city of St. Petersburg. Russian President Putin did not attend the private ceremony. He did offer his condolences to Prigozhin's family when it was confirmed he was one of the 10 who died in a private jet northwest of Moscow. The Wagner mercenary leader launched that failed coup against Moscow's military almost 2 months after that plane crash. Ukraine is ramping up evacuations as fighting intensifies on the Eastern Front. One city is caught in the crosshairs. Some residents are choosing not to leave, though. Yola Abdavid has more from the front line.
This town, Kupiansk, has seen a lot of action in the last year and a half already. The Russians were here for 7 months, and there's been lots of shelling, and there are many destroyed buildings here. Now, once again, this town and this area is under threat because Russian forces are pushing from the east, and apart from the odd military vehicle, a lot of people have already left. This town, at one time, had 30,000 people. About 12,000 remain. And they've stayed despite the local authorities here and the local governor advising people they should leave because there is threat to life. 1,400 people were taken out in the last few weeks since August the 9th, including almost 350 children. There are still people here, even amazingly waiting for a local bus to take them somewhere else. There are some shops open, there is some humanitarian aid in various hubs, but there are not many people here now. And the elderly people who've stayed here, well, family members stay with them because they don't feel they can go anywhere else, and maybe they stay for family pets. But as you can see, the main road in this town is almost deserted, apart from some military vehicles and some police presence. Yola Abdavid, CGTN, Kupiansk, Eastern Ukraine.
In the UK, travelers are being warned to expect disruptions in the coming days after big headaches and delays Monday. The system that controls British air traffic nationwide failed. Hundreds of flights were delayed or canceled, stranding passengers across Europe. Officials have ruled out a cyber attack, saying the problem was caused by a technical issue. An investigation is underway. Growing pressure for the British Museum to return Chinese artifacts free of charge. It follows a scandal involving the suspected theft of around 2,000 items in the museum's care. CGTN's Paul Barber explains.
The British Museum here in Bloomsbury in central London is one of the main attractions for tourists in the city. People happy to line up on an overcast August afternoon to see its treasures. However, for the past couple of weeks, this place has been attracting attention for all the wrong reasons. Around 2,000 artifacts have allegedly been stolen, gone missing, or been damaged. The scandal has cost the director his job and this world-renowned centre of cultural heritage a huge hit to its reputation. And it's led to renewed calls from other countries to return their precious artifacts currently in the museum's possession, including from Nigeria for the Benin bronzes and the Parthenon sculptures or Elgin marbles from Greece. Now, the state-run Chinese newspaper, the Global Times, has called in an editorial for the return of Chinese cultural relics acquired through improper channels to be repatriated to China free of charge. The British Museum says it has around 23,000 Chinese objects, including a famous reproduction of a scroll called the Admonitions of the Instructress to the Court Ladies from the Tang Dynasty. The demand has become the most trending subject on Weibo, with the hashtag The British Museum Please Return Chinese Antiquities viewed more than 500 million times. So what do visitors here think?
Of course, we really hope this kind of things can go back to China. This is all like the people in China, Chinese people in China's wishes.
I think it would be nice for the British to return the artifact to China, but that would lead serious questions of the other artifacts that British Museum is holding.
I don't think they should return everything back, but they might have a deal with the China government.
All museums now are going through this period of should it go back? You know, private art collectors are going through it as well. And I don't think that there's one right answer to this issue. It's very complex.
I think it should stay here, really. I mean, it's been looked after for such a long period of time.
Give some back, keep some. I think this is maybe some compromise.
CGTN has reached out to the museum for comment, but so far we've not had a reply. The Chinese government has also not yet commented. The British Museum has some 8 million artefacts in this iconic building, but only around 80,000 of them are on display, the vast majority of them from other countries. And whether obtained by fair means or foul, this scandal is not going away, and the previous British claims that artefacts are better protected here look ever harder to justify. Paul Barber, CGTN, in London.
Speaking of scandals, more heat for Spain's embattled football chief, Luis Rubiales. The government wants him expelled for kissing player Jenny Hermoso without her consent during the World Cup trophy ceremony. The Minister for Sport and Culture says Rubiales' actions are shameful.
It is unacceptable that these actions should stain such an important landmark, and of one that we feel so proud of, such as the women's national football team winning the World Cup for the first time in its history.
Rubiales initially apologized for the kiss before backtracking. He later said it was consensual. Hermoso says it was not. Rubiales has been suspended from FIFA for 90 days, and the Football Federation under his wing is the latest to call for his immediate resignation. Spanish prosecutors are also conducting a separate investigation. An outbreak of Legionnaire's disease has killed 14 people in Poland. Over 150 cases confirmed so far. The bacteria that causes the disease was found in the water supply. Authorities are investigating how it got there. Legionnaire's is a serious lung infection transmitted by inhaling tiny droplets of infected water. It is not contagious. People can become infected, though, when taking a shower, flushing the toilet, or from an air conditioning system. Initial symptoms are similar to the flu. 3 weeks ago, a paradise on the island of Maui was turned to ashes. It was the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. As residents pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, nearby communities are also feeling the impact. CGTN's Alistair Barverstock has more.
While Lahaina town in Hawaii may have been decimated by the deadly fires earlier this month, it's not the only place impacted.
The August 8th wildfires didn't only devastate the town of Lahaina. Here in Kula, 40 kilometers away on the eastern side of Maui Island, neighborhoods were devastated by the fires as residents evacuated.
After fleeing, Sally Johnston watched her town burn through the night from the valley below.
It was a nightmare. It was sort of apocalyptic. It was just a wall of fire. So we assumed that it was gone.
When she returned the following morning, Sally found her house had survived, but another danger lurking.
We were soon told that we had no water that we could brush our teeth in, take a shower, and you can't boil it. Boiling it makes the contamination worse. They're carcinogens. The water looks fine. It's clear water. So, for a while, I didn't even know about it, and I was still doing everything.
The fires left pipes damaged, leading to a loss of water pressure that can allow bacteria and toxic chemicals into the water lines. Toxicity has contaminated the water supply, and residents are being warned not to use it for anything at all, even washing clothes. Shelby Schofield, who lives nearby, immediately noticed the difference.
I don't know if you can smell it, but we've been running the water for a long time this morning, so I don't know but this is the one that gives us the worst smell. It kind of smells like between gas and chlorine and I don't know what else. It's not something that I've experienced in my lifetime.
While most of Kula may have survived the fire itself, the long-term health impacts from residual toxins have the community concerned.
When you heat the water, there's that carcinogens if you're near there, it's like you're inhaling cancer-causing stuff.
It's not like I want to die tomorrow, but I'm kind of not as concerned about me as I am about the younger people who may not have known, who may have taken showers and ingested some of the water. So that's a big challenge, and that's terrifying, really.
As Hawaii recovers from the wildfires, the longer-term health impact may take a lifetime. Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Kula, Hawaii.
And to Australia, and the first ever discovery of its kind, horrifying and cringeworthy. A worm, alive and wiggling, found in a patient's brain. A 64-year-old woman was admitted to the hospital in 2021 after weeks of abdominal pain. That's the worm right there, by the way. Her condition only got worse. She eventually underwent a biopsy, which resulted in surgery. That's when doctors saw it, a live parasitic worm, 8 centimeters long.
Well, obviously, we were surprised. We never necessarily thought we'd be the ones to find a new infection in the world, but we certainly knew that this sort of thing can happen as human beings and animal habitats grow closer together.
Now, the worms are commonly found in what they're called carpet pythons. Doctors say the patient was unknowingly exposed to the snake by touching the native grass and transferring the eggs of that snake to food and her cooking. Coming up, born in Malaysia, now off to China. A tearful goodbye to a pair of beloved pandas. We've got the details next.
.360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
We are CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Just a few days ago, we learned the National Zoo here in Washington will soon be saying goodbye to its giant pandas. The zoo is expected to hold a Pandapalooza event next month ahead of their departure. It will likely be a similar scene to one in Malaysia, where zookeepers and the public bid farewell to 2 panda cubs there. Their journey delayed for over 3 years. Ryan Meltzer has the story.
It was never in the plans for this custom-built air-conditioned facility in tropical Kuala Lumpur to house 4 giant pandas at one time. But no one counted on the adult pair loaned to Malaysia in 2014 proving so fertile, or on the COVID-19 pandemic. Sing Sing and Liang Liang produced their first cub just over a year after arriving, a world record for a natural birth in captivity outside of China. No sooner had that cub been sent to China than Liang Liang gave birth again. That cub was due to head to China early in 2020, but COVID intervened. Meanwhile, in 2021, a third cub was born, And now that it's past 2 years old, it will head to China with its older sibling. China's ambassador to Malaysia oversaw the farewell ceremony.
The return of these giant panda cubs serves the purpose of giant panda conservation, enabling them to socialize and breed with other giant pandas.
The antics of the rambunctious young pandas are always a big draw, and visitors to the zoo will be sad to see the two leave. But the hope will be that the adult pandas, loaned to Malaysia to mark the 40th anniversary of diplomatic ties, will once again produce another offspring in time for the 50th anniversary in 2024. Ryan Meltzer, CGTN, at Malaysia's National Zoo.
And finally, a lot of excitement and anticipation of the opening of the Chang'an Film Festival. Jiang Siran was there and got a chance to talk to some industry insiders.
Here at the opening night of the 18th Changchun Film Festival, the red carpet is filled with expectation and excitement. This year, 15 shortlisted films will be competing for 10 awards, known as the Golden Deer Awards. The award juries include 1 president and 6 members, among whom is Yu Nan, a Chinese actress with international recognition.
中国电影的票房 在各个方面已经跟好莱坞已经达成持平或者
In terms of box office and film production, China's film market has already reached or even surpassed the level of Hollywood and many other foreign markets. We are continuing to move forward from that basis.
一个品质的一个基础上还在继续前进。
Given the solid ground, Chinese filmmakers are nurturing personal styles. A recent box office hit, Oh My School, is running for competitions and was adapted from an animation series, which tells stories of middle school students in a northeastern China dialect.
Only by focusing on storytelling can a film turn out to be a success. Audiences will only love the story when we loved it first. I guess all filmmakers are dedicated to polish their stories.
China's film industry not only needs new stories, but also new genres. The well-known actor Wu Jing, who is also the ambassador of this year's festival, spoke on behalf of his peers.
我们还有太多的新的类型还没有开发出来。
There are many film genres awaiting our endeavors. It's definitely not an easy task, namely new martial arts films, new sci-fi films. I would like to work with all the filmmakers to bring our audiences more films with various genres and themes.
拍出更多的新类型奉献给观众。
This echoes the slogan of the 18th Changchun Film Festival, New Era, New Breakthrough. The festival will run until September the 2nd. Zhang Xiran, CGTN, Changchun City, Jilin Province.
And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. I'm Asiye Namdar in Washington.